Scott Payne, retired FBI, did 28 years in law enforcement. Started as a uniformed cop in South Carolina and got picked up by the FBI. Was in the New York field office, the San Antonio field office, and worked in a bunch of others. But the book, it wasn't something that I had planned. I really just wanted to. I had a decent amount of friends in the entertainment industry, and I was just kind of thinking of being a consultant or being backstage or whatever, maybe even grabbing a role if it was possible. But I've already been like the armorer on a set and like the weapons and tactics props guy. But it just ended up an opportunity came up to do a book. And when I met with the literary agents I chose, it just they sold me on it, and it's a legacy for my family. And I'm an instructor and a speaker and a teacher, and I go all over the place, still speaking and teaching about things. And that's kind of what I'm doing in the book, except just kind of put it all together with a co-writer.
It would be a disservice to anybody who's interested in law enforcement and true crime or this type of topic for you to have not written a book based on your career, because it's pretty unbelievable. I was again, I struggle with a lot of long form content, and I ripped through your 2 of the interviews that you did. I found your story very captivating. So you infiltrated some of the most, notorious and well-known, very, very dangerous organizations in the country. So you infiltrated the Outlaws 1% biker club. And is that the only biker club that you infiltrated, was the Outlaws?
No, I mean, that was the one that I was the primary undercover in the longest case, 2 years. But no, I've done others, but I was most likely helping somebody else. It was their case, and I came in to help them look real, do something. I started some other cases, but they trickled down or didn't come to fruition for whatever reason.
So when you're in a supporting role, are you still kind of neck deep in that life? Because it sounded like when you were with the Outlaws, and obviously I want to get into that in a lot of detail, but it sounded like you're an outlaw 24 hours a day for as long as you're undercover. Is that accurate, you think?
While I'm with them, sure. Yeah. Except for the times I break away from them and trade out recording equipment with the case team, or go in to meet the SWAT team so they can see me and say, please don't shoot this guy, kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, to be somewhere 24/7 full time, I mean, it can happen, but it wasn't likely for me. I think twice in my career, they said, hey, you're full time undercover, which means you're mitigated from all other casework and other things, and you're just doing that. But yeah, I mean, it's me, and that's why I always kind of stayed close to who I am. Really,
that's what I found really fascinating about how you told the story. Was I had always thought about this myself. Basically, my growing up, there was a long period of my life that I was planning on going into law enforcement. To be perfectly honest, I'm not really even sure what happened. I think I just lost sight of that. I had to go earn money at a certain point once I went to college, and I just was like drinking and trying to bang as many girls as I could. It was like, oh, when this is over, like I have to. So I just, I didn't have any direction. But I've thought about especially going undercover a lot. And one of the things that I'm sure many people who have not lived that life thought about is like what it would be like to get really, really tight with people that you're going to bury. And you talked a lot about that in the interviews I watched, which was really interesting. But like, so when you're first assuming a role, you know what, actually, why don't you just tell the whole story of the Outlaws? Let's just start there. Like, let's just start with like the Outlaws. Like, where were you in your career? Why did you guys target that specific bike club? And how did you guys get started? How'd you get the green light? And then how did you, make contact with them and start that process?
Sure. I was probably about 10 years into my FBI career at that point. Roughly. Maybe it's more like 8. But either way, I was stationed down in McAllen, Texas, out of the San Antonio field office. So I'm a case agent there. I'm a SWAT guy. I'm a firearms instructor, tactics instructor, things like that. But I was already certified. I already worked a decent amount of undercovers, especially at the state and local level, and now at the FBI level. But this will be the first big case for me that I did for that length of time and to bond with that many people. But I can't remember if I got a phone call or there was an email canvas. But either way, I was interested, and I went out to Boston to the field office and was kind of interviewed, kind of like a panel interview. Of course, FBI's there, but task forces, local departments, ATF, DEA were there, and they picked me after the interview process. I don't know how many the undercovers they looked at, but they decided with me, and then it was trying to figure out what kind of approach I was going to make, and how, for me, in my mind, I would be comfortable being up there with what kind of backstory I would have. As far as that chapter and that area, that's the Boston field office. That task force had been working them for probably a year or more. And I mean, some of them have been working on them forever, like the task force officers. And they whether it's through traditional law enforcement work of car stops or hitting a search warrant or sources giving you information or you corroborating different things, they were building an investigation against them.
So there's is there always law enforcement looking at like bike clubs? Like if you put a 1%er patch on, there's a high probability that people are looking at you automatically just because you guys exist, or do they have to get caught up in like known criminal activity that draws the attention of federal law enforcement?
It'd be the latter, because we can't open an investigation on you just because you're a part of a 1%er club, no more than we can open an investigation on you just because you're spewing hate online, just because of your ideology. It has to be more involved. Crime, maybe you're saying that you're going to do something violent, and maybe that's enough, because it has to go through a legal review. We can't just open a case willy-nilly. And so they'd already had all kinds of predication. When I say predication, that means you already know this person's dealing drugs. They've been caught, or you've got a recording, or you've had a source, or you've bought dope, or however. Or it could be that they're doing home invasions or extortion or carjackings, and they're building that. But do they have enough to really charge them and make an airtight case? Not yet. And that's why the undercover technique is considered to be a sophisticated investigative technique, much like a wiretap. And you have to show that you've exhausted your means of regular law enforcement. Like, we've followed them, we've tried to do this, and we can't get to that level. So let's try to get an undercover in there.
I didn't know that. That's really interesting. Matter of fact, I had two questions about what you just said related to the process of getting an undercover into an organization. So the first one being that, so the process is you have to go through lower level tactics to see if you can build a case. If you can't do that by whatever, flipping somebody that you got caught, or witnesses can put them there, then you have to bring that up the ladder and say, we can't pin something on these guys. Can we put in so it's basically like you have to escalate to an undercover being a tactic that you would use on an organization.
Yes, because think of it like a wiretap. That's very invasive. That's a very invasive technique. And like the TV shows and the movies where like, I want to be on that phone in 30 minutes. That is extremely, extremely rare. Yeah. We might be able to get on a phone for somebody that's missing or kidnapped or something like that. We might be able to get on that phone and track it. But as far as getting on that phone and listening to it from a Title III wiretap, it's like 80-page affidavits. And it's not just, hey, I turned it in the U.S. Attorney's Office, but we're working back and forth. There's OEO and all these other organizations that are looking at it. And it's not as easy as it looks on TV, which it shouldn't be easy, because it's very invasive.
Are the agents that are still working cases leveraging AI yet to write those affidavits? Because if they're not, they're out of their mind. They'll be able to write those affidavits in literally 2 hours, like an hour, instead of however long it normally takes to write 80 pages. I'm actually totally serious about that.
I don't know. That's a good question, but I would imagine, because at the end of the day, even if AI typed it for you, you're going to have to read it all and because you're going to have to swear to it.
Mhm.
You're gonna
No,
have
for
to stand
sure.
before the judge and swear. But yeah, I mean, that would
People
be
who,
that'd be
yeah,
nice.
I'm telling you, AI is as smart as the person using it, and that's we just showed it to. We were on vacation in Cancun, and we showed it to someone who was down there. Was the retired general counsel for Kaiser, so like the top attorney for Kaiser Permanente, and
Okay.
she had never messed around with AI, and so we were showing her, and we were like, "Look, we had it write this legal letter for us," and she was like, "Oh my!" And I was just saying, like, anytime I hear anybody, I have to write an 80-page thing, I always just throw that out. I just try to be helpful, like it would be
So you were using like chat GPT or whatever it's
the
called?
upgraded version, the one you have to pay for it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's unbelievable. It is. I can show you offline. It's no one, no one listening to this cares about that. I can show you offline if you care.
I
But
know,
anyway, yeah.
yeah.
So, but yeah. So okay. So that was the one question. The other one was the interview process. I didn't realize that that was. I mean, I guess that's kind of common sense that you got to pick somebody who's going to go in that fits the. It's like these people are all a very specific type of person. You're not just going to randomly pick some undercover who doesn't fit the role. So that's interesting. So like how many case agents, or I'm sorry, potential undercovers usually would like ballpark audition for or interview for one of those cases?
I don't know, because it's really a case by case basis, and it doesn't always have to happen that way with the interview process. It could be, I mean, I was the undercover coordinator for my division for many years until I retired. So as an undercover coordinator, I was connected in the undercover program. So you start knowing who, if you've got, let's just say 11,000 agents, and out of those 11,000 agents, 600 are certified undercovers. When you ask how many of you have been the primary undercover on one, at least one undercover, that number dwindles down. When you say how many of you have been a primary on one, more than one, but less than five, it dwindles down even more. If you get past 5 to 10, we're getting tighter, and 10 and more. And you generally know, I mean, there's always going to be new people coming in and older people going out. But for many, many years, you kind of know that crew that's the biker crew, that's the white supremacy crew, and you hit those up, or any other type of violation. It's just you kind of learn who those are. So I may just reach out to them personally and be like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" But yeah, you just don't. You're not going to just grab anybody and throw them in there, because also, like as I said, some of these cases, the case teams have been working them for a year or more. Can you imagine if I walked in on day one and did something stupid and blew the entire case? That wouldn't be cool.
No, not at all. And yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's like I love how you were saying, and I don't want to step on this part coming forward here, like going ahead, but like how they're you're like, I could have easily been these guys, and that to me seems like the most logical fit, because I've always thought that. I mean, especially as a person who didn't go into either of these directions, there's easily a world where I'm law enforcement or some asshole 1% biker, depending on very few like minute directions my life could have gone. And so it's like, it's like, okay, well, if I ended up over here, it wouldn't be very hard for me to play a character over here, and so I've always thought about that. They're like the type of personality that goes into undercover law enforcement is not very different from some adrenaline junkie fuckhead who's riding their bike 100 miles an hour. It's like, it's a very similar personality type. You know what I mean? It's like someone who's going to die in an office job. You know what I mean? It's like,
oh yeah. You put me at a desk, whatever, 40 hours a week sitting at a desk, I'm probably go nuts.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I could pull up a picture of me on the Vice and Narcotics squads in Greenville, South Carolina, and we went to Myrtle Beach Bike Week for the spring and fall rallies. If you looked at us, you'd think we were just another bunch of bikers. We don't look like cops per se, And I mean, hell, I bounced, and I mean, the Hells Angels were all everywhere I bounced. They actually helped me several times. When I was getting the living crap kicked out of me.
So there's there's got to be a lot of good dudes in these in these organizations too. Like at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know. Well, goods. I mean, I'm sure it depends on the club. I mean, I listen to some of these guys. Like I've listened to the what's his name, Pee Wee, who was the Vegas president of the Hells Angels. Dude's like, that gigantic dude. He's like 6'8" or whatever. And I've listened to him talk, and he said, at least I mean, he's got no reason to lie now. He's not active and he's just doing interviews. And he said that he made it like stone that there was nobody was doing any crimes because he didn't want any issues with law enforcement. So like, you know, if that's the kind of club you're in, yeah, I mean, yeah. He laughs. That's funny, dude.
I can see my face turning red. I'm like, yeah.
That's funny.
Look, I'm not saying they're all criminals, but it kind of goes with the 1%er patch.
That's fair.
You know?
That's fair. I just,
but I mean, is it federal level stuff? No, I mean, not all of it. I mean, of course not. You know, maybe you just go do whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I just meant like I was in a fraternity in college. If I would have understood early on that like there's a way to kind of extend that throughout your life, you know, like that. I understand why people join biker clubs and having nothing to do with wanting to do meth and stab people. You know what I mean? Like the camaraderie or whatever.
See, but TV also does a lot of stuff, right? So when the Sopranos were huge and popular, the numbers were growing in like La Cosa Nostra. When Sons of Anarchy was kicking it for all those seasons, and don't get me wrong, I watched every single episode, loved it. Also, I did find it hard to watch it without pouring a Jack and Coke, though. It's something with my mindset with being with the biker thing. But the numbers for the 1%er clubs started growing. But sometimes you get people that go, "Oh man, this is just like Sons of Anarchy. We're riding, we're partying," and then the real bullets start flying, and they're like, "Wait a minute, this is not what I signed up for. I thought we were just going to ride and party. I didn't know I was going to get shot at," kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but I love that. I love that environment. I'm a biker. I love to ride. So
yeah, that show lost me when they started having like people shooting rocket launchers at each other with the CIA involved. I was like, okay, guys, Jesus, enough.
Not in the cartel. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, this is too much. But yeah, so so how long have you been retired for?
I retired in June of 21.
Oh, so okay, so it's not like brand new. So you're like, I was gonna say, I would imagine it's like was it a tough transition initially?
Well, I didn't think it was, but the first year and a half, at the year and a half mark, I had to look and go, okay, I need to change the way I think. I need to reassess some things somewhere in that first year and a half, because you go from, just say you're full contact sports. Let's just say you're out there, you're making arrests. You're wrestling people, the defensive tactics, you're doing stuff. And now all of a sudden you're not. What do you do? Plus you're getting older and your mindset, maybe your, I want to say your ego, but let's say your self-esteem's taking a little beating. You know, what do you do? How do you change your mindset to this new lifestyle? And look, you got to kind of look at things differently. So yeah, I mean, it's been a transition for sure.
Yeah, I understand that. I think a lot of the stuff that I do is in combat sports. So like the transition for professional fighters into retirement, which happens a lot younger than, like most people, is extraordinarily challenging for them. Like, I mean, obviously it goes from like, the only way that you can get to the top of that sport is for it to be your everything. Like you can't, there's no more like part-time guys that get to a really high level in that sport. And so you can't be laser focused every day on training and all of that stuff and then just go to nothing, without it. And also all the attention that you get goes away. And so it's really hard for them. But I always suggest for guys like, like you said, full contact guys, jiu-jitsu, man. That's jiu-jitsu keeps people's brains in check. That's all I do this jiu-jitsu, parent my kids, hang out with my wife. That's my entire life.
I'm about to start back. I'm about to start back myself. I was doing a lot of Krav Maga because it really kind of went well with law enforcement, right? Your violent counter attacks create, and it's no rules, right? No rules because you're in fear for your life. And then you create distance. And for me, that's when I can draw a weapon if I create distance. But I'm getting ready to go hit the mat.
Yeah. How big are you? You're an enormous man.
No. Well, it depends on which room I'm in, but I'm 6'4", 260.
I mean, that is above the, I guess anything above 250 I call enormous. Yeah. One of the gyms out here, the gym that I was, well, not the first gym that I was at, but so my team has two academies out here that are about 30 minutes apart. The one that I was at for a year before I moved to the one is like it is a magnet for the biggest dudes in Texas. Like all of these, because the main instructor is Victor Hugo, who's I don't know, top, depending on who you ask, top 1 to 2 to 3 guys in the world, and he's 270. And so all these, I swear it's like, so I'm 200, I'm 195. I'm a midget in that place. 195 is like a smurf in that room, dude. There's just all these enormous fuckers. If you ever come out to Texas, you want to roll, you should go there, dude. You'd have a great time.
Yeah, that sounds fun. One of my mentors, when I was in the Vice Narcotics Squad, his name was Gary. He was the world's strongest man in the late 80s. And he used to take his cardio. Well, he got recruited to start when the Brazilian BJJ was starting to really come in. There was a gym out in Simpsonville, South Carolina. Ended up being Wonder Boy. I trained there. Like later on, I see Wonder Boy and I go, "Is that Ray?" Because it Ray's his dad, and I'm like, "Hey, I broke my toe on their mat," you know. Yeah. But I remember, like, a lot of times in the beginning, you could just overpower some people, you know, and I wouldn't be doing the move right, but then I tried to do it on the world's strongest man, and it didn't fare too well for me. So I was like, "Oh, I'm doing that wrong." But yeah, you're right. It's pretty wild.
Being strong and fast is a massive hindrance in your jiu-jitsu development. As I learned, I think I always tell people this. I'm pretty sure that I wasted an entire, like literally probably an entire year of training 6 days a week. I feel like I learned about as much as I could have learned in about 3 weeks if I would have understood what I was supposed to be doing, because I just would like throw people around. Because like in my mind, I'm like, I'm not supposed to be beating anyone that's a higher rank than me anyway. And I could beat the shit out of all these white belts just throwing them around. So I wasn't like learning anything at all. And it was like, I think everybody who can cheat with strength learns that at some point. But anyway, this is my specialty is derailing conversation. So let me take you back to Outlaws. So
we got that in common.
Yeah. So okay, so you get picked for the Outlaws, and how, like, what's the, well, actually, you know what? I wanted to ask one more question about just like undercover work in general. Like, so how much, tell me about the very first like organization that you were infiltrating. Cause I heard you talk about the first undercover thing that you did, you know, where you rolled the window down a little bit, you bought, you know, like I heard that story.
A sliver of crack.
Yeah.
At 270 pounds.
Yeah. The most well-fed crackhead ever. But like, what was the first organization that you infiltrated, and what was like the first, I don't know, like 2 weeks of that like?
I mean, the most sophisticated organization is probably the Outlaws. I mean, I'd done, like, we use the term criminal enterprise. So criminal enterprise could mean you're working a gang. It could be La Cosa Nostra. It could be just a criminal enterprise. I did some of those and some public corruption things. And technically they're organizations, but it's nothing you would know. It's not like it had a name, like, you know, the Scott Payne, you know, chop shop syndicate, you know, it's none of that, but it was an organization. So I did that. But like title wise, it's Outlaws, big gang wise.
Yeah. And so what was like, how did it start? You know, the first, I don't know, like the first day of infiltration, and like, maybe, I don't know, talk to like the first 2-3 weeks. Like when you think of the first few weeks of that operation, what was that like? Like, how would you tell that story?
Well, it can stretch for way more than a couple of weeks, because before you
tell it exactly how you would tell it. Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to give away tradecraft, right? But the thing is you need to have a backstory that's believable. So what do you need to have in place for that backstory in case somebody checks it? So that may take time. You showing up, I mean, listen to this accent. And now I'm in Boston. As soon as I start talking in the bar, they're like, "Where are you from?" You know? So why am I there? I want it to be as real as possible. I need to be able to believe it and sell it. It needs to look real. And that's kind of what takes time. But I had gone up there. I'd gone to one of the clubs that I knew they frequented a good bit. I'd gone there a couple of times on my own and just do what I do. I mean, I used to work in I used to bounce in the bar industry and stuff in the clubs. So I just kind of used what I learned from there to go in, make myself known, buy drinks, kind of become a regular. And then when it's time for me to go in and meet them for the first time or try, That's what all that prep had been there for. So the night comes when the cover team's like, hey, they're leaving the clubhouse. They're on the way to the Foxy Lady. So I'm in there. This is going to be my first time to try to see them and maybe get their attention. And that's what happened. They all came in. They were at the back bar. I'm telling jokes. We're laughing. And then I get called by one of the guys. He's like, hey, man, where the F are you from? And of course, he's already asked the bartender, hey, do you know that guy? Oh, yeah, that's Tex. I mean, it's a dude from Texas. He comes here a good bit. And then it's just people stuff. For me, nothing I was trained to do, not giving away any training, but I'm just being me. Jovial country guy telling jokes can be the life of the party. And sometimes that doesn't work in the situation. And sometimes people don't like that, but that's me.
And I would imagine like having good instincts about drawing people in without looking like you're, like you said, people stuff. How to like float something without it looking like you're trying to go there. You know what I mean? It's like people can give away, like when people want something from a person, it's very obvious if they're not very, very good at cloaking what they want. And yeah, I mean, I
was wondering if you may sell any of that white powdery stuff.
Yeah. I heard you outlaws are into all kinds of crime.
The local FBI office told me so. No, I'm just being me. I mean, like if I went to a bar, where are you at in Texas?
I'm north of Austin in Round Rock.
Okay. Well, I was just in Austin a couple of weeks ago.
Rogan, right?
Yeah. I think it was last week. It seems like it's been multiple weeks, but yeah. So I did the same thing in Austin. I went out, walked into a bar. I'm at the bar getting a drink. For me, you look a certain way, you just attract attention. I'm loud. I can't help that, and then I'm nice. I love connecting with people. I just start telling jokes or, hey man, how's it going? Or, excuse me, I didn't mean to bump into you thing. And, just having a good time.
Yeah. I've talked about that actually with my wife a lot where, to your point about the people looking a certain way. Cause it's the same, it's the same thing in like kind of, I don't know, the crews I run with where so we went to I hosted a group at the Jake Paul and Nate Diaz fight in Texas one time. And we had a hotel. So the people who came with me, I had a couple of my buddies who were Navy SEALs, a couple of guys who were fighters. Rudy Reyes was there. And my buddy, Yuzefa, he brought this girl that he knew from law school she's like this 5'1", liberal attorney. And I remember he told me that he was bringing her and Jake Paul, I forgot Jake Paul's, his bodyguard was in there. This dude is 7'1" with face tattoos. And I remember she walked in and I just looked at her face and I was like, oh man. So, everybody's super nice. Everybody's super nice. And I remember talking to her later in the night and she was like, this room is filled with like such nice people. And she didn't have to say it, but I knew what she was saying she's like, I've never talked to anybody who looks like these fucking tattooed freaks. And I always expected that they would be terrifying and everybody's really, really nice. I'm like, I think it sets people up initially, initially. That's what I mean is I feel like it's actually like like you go see a movie that you heard sucks balls. It's like you're more likely to come out of it like, oh man, I actually kind of like that movie. Or if it's like, this is the best fucking movie ever. And then you go in there, you're like, it was good. Where like, I think, looking like this sets people up to kind of be like, and then you're just nice. They're all fucking it. That's a really nice guy. I think like subconsciously they're like, that guy's probably an asshole. And it's like, no, not actually. I'm actually,
I take it back to, I'm still a professional wrestling fan. I've still got friends in the industry, but I grew up on it. And I remember before everybody kind of knew that there was some choreographing and stuff going on and decisions already made. I just remember growing up, and the more I got exposed to it, it was the bad guys who were always nice. Like it was the Ric Flairs, and it was the dirtiest they were super nice backstage. It was the good guys who were a-holes, man. Yeah. So yeah, I get that.
Totally. So, okay. So when you start getting into the role where the outlaws start to trust you, start doing business with them a little bit, and tell everybody. So what was the what was the criminal persona that you took on, and so what did they think that you did from a criminal perspective to where they brought you into that side of their organization?
Well, originally, I said I come from a landscaping background, and I did some research, and what I said I was as a legitimate job was a site survey specialist. So, in other words, I travel the country for investors looking at property to buy, and it can get real boring pretty fast, especially when you're talking to a bunch of bikers who don't care about dirt, you know. But once I started getting invited to different get-togethers, and now you're getting more exposure, you're getting scrutinized even more, because even though if let's just say the Taunton chapter knows me and they all like me and I like them, and we've been around each other for months and months, well, we go to a regional, there's a new president from another chapter, doesn't know me, and they're like, where the F is this guy from and why is he hanging out with you? So you're always getting scrutinized. But eventually I let it be known that I was the role that I portrayed is that I was a high-ranking member of an international theft ring, and I moved stolen equipment to Mexico, and it was all factual. It's because I was working down there anyway. I mean, I would make sure that the stuff was legit, that this really happened. It just didn't. In other words, I didn't pull something out of my rear end, you know.
It's like previous cases that you've worked. Did you actually take a persona that you were working in another case and then bring it to the Outlaws case, or?
No, I think it's just more me. But
I just meant so when you say like you were selling, it's an international theft ring, and you were saying you were making sure those things actually happen. I'm saying, like, was that were you parlaying criminal activity you were doing in another case into the Outlaws case?
Not necessarily a case I might have been the case agent on, but there were cases being done. Yeah, like I'd go meet with Texas Department of Public Safety, DPS, and I'm like, hey man, can you tell me, because they have an auto theft unit, and and by the way, I moved from New York City. Well, I lived right on the river in Jersey, but still taxes are high. And I went, my insurance on my motorcycle when I moved from Jersey to McAllen, Texas, it was like tripled. It was insane how much I got the first bill. I'm like, what? I called USAA and I'm like, what in the hell? It's just a motorcycle. It's like a 1980 something motorcycle. And they're like, yeah, but Harley Davidsons get stolen like crazy on the border, and they get taken across the border. And that's why your insurance is so high. And I'm like, okay.
That's got to be one of the only things that's more expensive from a, kind of an institutional level in Texas than New York,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. The cartel people would steal. They loved 4x4 V8s, and they loved Harley Davidsons.
So did you ever interact with cartel guys?
Yeah, I mean, I worked them as a case agent. I was so when I first got to McAllen, I was on a drug squad. Obviously, you're on the border of Mexico, but then this new thing came in where we were focusing on not alien smuggling per se, but special interest alien smuggling. So in other words, these would be undocumented illegals coming into the country illegally from threat countries. Like that could be up to no good, and we were looking for that, but it's still the same cartel running it. Instead of this organization moving dope, they're moving people, and you're still paying the same quotas to the cartel, to the Zetas back then. And so I mean, you interview cartel members, we're running cases with wiretaps on them, running sources against them, all the time.
Okay, so I want to come back to that after we do the Outlaws for sure. So okay, so you've been working the Outlaws for a long time, you're in there and you're getting brought to events, and you said that you had some guys that you were especially close to. Why don't you talk through that a little bit?
Oh, on the Outlaws case?
Yeah.
So you kind of mentioned in the beginning, Undercover isn't always cakes and pies. It rarely is, really. I mean, trust me, I enjoyed it, and there are many aspects of it I miss. But at the age of 54, how many young white supremacy groups can I infiltrate? Who's grandpa over there? You shut your mouth, kid. But I can't. So, but on the Outlaws case, in the undercover world, it's not necessarily acting. It's not lying. It's not, you are building relationships. You are connecting with people. And if you gather evidence that they're committing crimes, you're going to be betraying that relationship because they're going to be getting arrested. But in the Outlaws, again, those are I won't say my kind of people, because it's not criminals are my kind of people, but it's my kind of culture. You know, I mean, a bunch of Neanderthal dudes with testosterone and alcohol and wrestling each other in a bar and knocking over tables. And you know what my favorite move is? It's this one. Oh, I like this one. And it's just like being back in college ball or bouncing or just being stupid or same in the fight game. Right. You know? But over the 2 years, I developed some key relationships in there. And one of them was a big guy named Scott. That was the closest friendship that I had. And, you know, you go through training and you get the training and we teach it. And I get it. It's not my true friend, supposedly, right? They're friends with Scott Calloway, not Scott Payne, but I'm still human. And like I said before, I'm not veering too far of who I am. So yeah, I bonded heavily with Scott. Probably the second closest relationship I had was with a guy whose road name was Clothesline. His real name's Brian. And then after that, probably would have been the president of the chapter, Joe Dogs, and then on down.
So, and I imagine there's got to be a lot of conflict where, you know, if you really, really genuinely like these guys and you feel really close to them, especially because like you know, there's always there's like people that you like, and then there's people that you like, and then you have these kind of activities that you do together that really bond guys together. I've always said, like, guys that you train with, you have a different kind of relationship with, and then if you compete and other guys compete, you go with them to competitions. That's like kind of an additional thing. And then, like, you know, and I've never been to war, but obviously war bonds are extraordinarily strong. So like I would imagine this is kind of like in that vein. So there has to have been some times where when these guys incriminated themselves, like, how did you feel when Scott would just overtly incriminate himself in a way that you knew, like in that moment where he incriminated himself, how did you feel where you knew you're like, man?
It depends on what it is for me personally during that case, but that's just part of the job. I mean, I'm just doing my job. You know, some people like to yell snitch. I'm like, I'm a snitch, man. I'm a damn federal employee doing my job.
You're an FBI agent.
Yeah, we've got reports of people doing stuff, and as I've said on many interviews, there's been plenty of times where I've been the undercover, and we go in, and after 4 or 5 months, there's nothing there. It's like I'm in, I'm listening, and they're not breaking any federal laws. It's all protected from the Constitution, or just it's nothing that rises to our level, and then I'm out. You know, the case team can figure out whatever they want to do. But yeah, Scott, like when at the part in the case when we were doing the big drug deal and they were going to help protect it, they didn't know we had 40 kilos of cocaine. They knew it was dope, and they pretty much knew it was cocaine and weed, which weed's really nothing anymore. But you know, circa 2006-ish, 1,000 pounds of weed was still a big deal. But I remember Scott was like, he'd have told me before that he had gotten out of certain things in the game, whether it was mafia or outlaws, and because it was kids, and he had looked at possible prison time on a charge. I don't know what it was, but he said he was looking at time and had to pay a lot of money to an attorney. He got out of it, and that's why he was staying away from it. So when he said he wanted in on the deal, I do remember asking. I'm not giving it away. I'm not saying, hey, I'm an FBI agent, you shouldn't be doing this, because that's not part of, I can't do that. Right. That would be wrong. But I do remember saying, why are you doing this? You know, you already told me you didn't do this anymore because you got kids, and just know you don't have to do this for me. I don't know why you're doing it. You don't have to do this because of me. And he said he was doing it anyway. So I'm like, okay.
You gave him an out.
In my mind, yeah. I mean, I asked a good question. Yeah.
Well, and you, I mean, to me, that's a really honorable way to do it too, where you're like, look, because you're like, in the way that you asked that, and I'm sure that is a very memorable conversation that you had. But so it's like, the way you asked it is like, I've built a strong enough relationship with this guy that I can recognize there's a possibility he's doing this specifically because he feels loyalty to me, and I'm not comfortable with burying this guy for that reason alone, unless he was going to do it on his own. So you gave him an out on that.
Yeah, and
right?
it's not that wouldn't be really entrapment anyway, but you're kind of starting to get into that realm, right? You know, the entrapment's always the big argument against, especially against undercovers. It's like, hey, I mean, you see it in critiques and people spewing stupid stuff. Hey, everybody you put in jail was for stuff you initiated. Absolutely not. I can't do that. I can't. I mean, I didn't initiate it. That would be entrapment. Yeah. Why would you plead guilty? Why would everybody plead guilty to entrapment? That's just not. That's one of the first things you learn as an undercover, and it should be a no-brainer. You shouldn't be doing any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And now, as I tell a lot of people, I'll say this: a lot of people are like, "Man, this, and this," and I'm like, "Well, if you're not doing anything illegal, what are you worried about? Why are you so upset if you're not doing anything illegal? And if you are, and you get caught, as I've said in many interviews, I'm as a law enforcement officer, a federal agent who enforces the law. I've sat down with so many, the majority, if not all, and said, look, I'm not saying I disagree with what you did. I'm not saying I think you're a bad person. I'm saying you're an adult and you chose to break the law and you got caught. So let's just start right here. It's nothing personal. I'm telling my age here, but let's go back to the Bugs Bunny cartoons, man. The sheepdog and the coyote show up to work. They clock in, they chase each other, and all day long, the coyote tries to steal the sheep. All day long, the sheepdog protects the sheep. At the end, they clock out. You know, see you tomorrow, Sam. You know, it's nothing personal.
Yeah, I mean, like if you joined my academy and we trained together for 5 years and we were super close, and you came to me and you were like, "Look, man, I got an opportunity to make some money. You want to protect a drug shipment?" I'd be like, "Fuck no."
Where did that come from? You've never mentioned drugs to me before.
Well, even if we had talked about it a million times, you're like, yeah, it's easy, dude. We're just gonna drive behind the car, make sure that nobody comes on the other sides. It's easy. You're gonna make 50 grand. I'd be like, fuck no, I'm not getting involved in that shit. I got kids, man.
But if you're a career criminal, who doesn't have a job, and you are a straight hustler, you're a straight thug, whether it be extortions, robberies, home invasions, beat downs, carjackings. It's just maybe a good way to say it is this: 28 years in law enforcement. I'm still heavily involved with law enforcement as an instructor and things like that. I have seen people, criminals, and I'm not trying to downplay them by calling them criminals. I'm not trying to degrade at all, but involved in criminal activity, they put so much effort. They are so smart in how they do it, the work ethic they have. And I'm like, if you would just take half of that and apply it to something legit that's not illegal, man, you could be something, you know? So
yeah. So when you were in the thick of it, I heard you say that like even the agents that were working this case with you, they would ask specifically about whether Scott was going to be there because they felt safer about you being protected in these environments because they knew he was there. Like that's how tight you guys were, and they all knew it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming they knew it because they did ask. Like, you're not going to put it in the FBI operations plan, you know. Contingency. Scott's going to be there, and he'll help take care of Scott. I mean, you're not going to do that. I'm sure the legal people would be like, "What? We're depending on a target." But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And he's a jack dude, and he could dadgum sure take care of himself. But that was a general consensus, you know, like, hey man, say we're going to go to a party at a clubhouse of a possible rival club or something's happening, is like, hey man, is Scott going to be there, kind of thing? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to pick him up first. And they're like, okay, go. All right, just good to know. And I'm like, yeah, it's good to know. I feel better too, you know. Because
how did he find out that you were an agent?
He got arrested. Yeah, I mean,
were you there?
No. On that case, it's not just the case, it's the previous 3 years of my life. I had been applying that warrior mentality to every aspect of my life. Not getting enough sleep, put some dirt on it, jog it off. Shoulder surgery, keep going. to the point to where, I mean, I was a zombie by the end of it. And I was inhalers, antihistamines, decongestants, anything with ephedrine or ephedrine, however you want to pronounce it. I was taking that stuff. I was drinking the strongest coffee I could find or make. And I'd still take a nap. I still fall asleep. But that's just because I'd been burning the candle at both ends for a while. So the case ended with me on the phone. I did set up a couple of last deals at the end of the case because a guy right at the end had came on the scene. He just got out of prison, but he knew about me and drugs, came right up to me and basically said, "Hey, I want to do business." Even when I didn't come back, he called me. I'm in McAllen, and he's like, "Hey, if you can get me a price of 18 grand a kilo, I got enough money right now to buy 10 of them." Then he also said, "Hey, I have some stolen vehicles I need to sell, get rid of." So I let the case team know. The case team says, "Yeah, we want to go after him." So the guys that have been posing as my truck drivers went up and picked up some vehicles. And while they're picking them up, they put me on the phone with him, with this guy named Tim Sylvia, actually, but not the UFC fighter, Tim Sylvia, who I know. Actually, he texted me after seeing me. He's like, "I didn't know you knew another guy named Tim Sylvia." I said, "Well, he's nowhere near as big and sexy as you."
That's a big ass dude right there.
I look like a piss ant next to him. He calls me Fluffy, by the way. I'm like, "Who are you calling Fluffy?" That's not funny,
He calls people whatever he wants.
I know, but I'm looking up at him. I'm going, "Who are you calling Fluffy? You goddamn giant,"
Yeah.
But so this guy's name was Tim Sylvia, and we set up the deal. I broker it, tell him how much to pay him, this, that, and the other. I get on the phone with Tim, tell him not to report the BMW stolen on Friday, make it Saturday. It gives me 24 hours to get the car into Mexico, kind of thing. And while they were doing that exchange, he hit them up for 10 kilos, and they said yes, and that's how the case ended. That was the initial of the takedown.
So like one last silver platter case where it just was like, "Here, you want this on the way out?"
Well, yeah. I mean, he came to us. I mean, he's straight up, "Man, do you know what I do?" I was like, "I think I know what you're doing because I'm in that magic powder business." I'm like, "Okay, all right." And can you get me 18? Can you get me, like, I don't know if he said brick or whatever he called it, but it was good. But you go back to that relationship thing, and not only do you get the pressure in your head of, "Hey man, this case is finally ending," you get the stress of, I'm betraying these people. You get the stress of, what am I going to do now? What are they going to do when they find out? There's all kinds of stuff like that. But here's another stressor. I already said I was a tactical and SWAT guy. In my division, I was the lead tactical instructor. I'm drawing diagrams for SWAT teams and arrest teams all over the Northeast because I'm the one that's been in the clubhouse. I'm the one that's been in Joe Dog's house. I'm the one that's been in Scott Town's house. And I'm thinking to myself, man, what if I mess something up and somebody gets hurt because I drew something wrong? So that's another stressor. But the way the case ended is they do that, what we call a reversal. They showed up as if they were going to sell 10 kilos. He shows up with money and vehicles or whatever, and the SWAT team does the takedown.
That's like the most dramatic kind of, I'm fucked right there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, law enforcement, we don't have a crystal ball. A lot of times you'll hear people complain, "Well, why did you need that many people?" I don't have no crystal ball. If I would have known I could have called you and you'd have walked in here, maybe we could have done that. But you got a pretty lengthy background and you've been pretty violent in your history. We're showing up with guns drawn because we don't want any incident at all. So that's the way that one ended. But that night I was in Nevada. I was somewhere putting on some training. I got back to my room and we still had they were using on that case. The Outlaws loved the Nextel, so I was using Nextel as well, the old like walkie-talkie cell phone. And I go to my room at whatever wee hour of the morning, whether it's 4 or 5, whatever it was, and my phone's chirping. And I check the message, and it's actually Big Scott leaving me a message. So I call him back, and he's all groggly voice, and he's like, "Hey man, I just want you to know your truck drivers and Big Timmy, they got arrested." He goes, "I don't know what's going on. I just got a phone call, but I wanted to let you know right away." And I said, "Well, they're not doing nothing for me. Sometimes they do things on the side." I said, "But I'll try to figure out what's going on." And he said, "Hey, I'm going to get cleaned up. I'm going to find out what's going on and I'll call you back." And I said, "Okay, cool." And Scott's last words to me were, "I love you, brother." And my last words to him were, "I love you too." And generally I did. And that's not exactly correct. that is not what we teach. And but I'm human, and that's what I felt. So
is that the last time you talked to him?
yes.
Man, that's a heavy fucking job right there.
Yeah, that one was. And even throughout the years, you know, I get better. I hope I get better. I still made plenty of mistakes, but you learn and go forward. And you ask, have I taken on things, you know, in other cases? Well, yeah, I got stripped in the basement at gunpoint on that outlaw case at a year.
Tell
and a half
that
in.
story. Yeah, tell that story.
Well, we were at a year and a half in, and by this point, I've done what appears to be all kinds of criminal activity, whether it's you carjack somebody, I got rid of the car for you, whether it's you reporting the car stolen, getting your insurance money and I'm buying it, or whether you're outright stealing stuff, or I bought boat from you, whatever. We've got all kinds of criminal activity that I've done. So it's a year and a half in, and we've upped the ante. We're now going to be doing this big drug deal. And the U.S. Attorney's Office, of course, we want to gather as much evidence as we can. So if you're in the clubhouse and all these members in that chapter are talking about the deal, well, that's a possibility you could be wrapped into a conspiracy. In my experience, we're not trying to do some penny ante BS. I would disagree with it anyway if we did. But I go to the night before the deal, Joe Dog's the president, says, "Hey man, I want you to come over to the clubhouse." I've been there all kinds of times. I'm like, yeah, okay, no big deal. Plus I'm trying to get evidence, right? So I go over, I knock on the door, nobody's coming. I'm knocking. Finally the door cracks open about this far. It's like Joe Dog's going, "Hey, we're not ready yet." And I was even I was being a smart aleck. I'm like, well, what the hell did you have me come over here for? So I go waste time. I go get something to eat, drink, come back. I'm waiting. And I finally go in. Well, I'm doing my normal stick. I'm in there. Hey, brother, what's going on? We're all hugging this, that, and the other. I'm cracking jokes. They're cracking jokes. What I don't see is that when I would turn my eyes away from them, their laughter would stop and they would go stone cold, just stone face.
And how did you have a video of that to review later? You got a camera in the clubhouse?
They were on me. Again, tradecraft issues. I won't say where on my person,
Sure.
Where on my body, what it was hidden in. But yeah, I had multiple recording devices on me and a transmitter. But that's my job, right?
Yeah.
So I go in, I'm talking, I don't pick up these things that are going on. And as I said earlier, like probably my second closest relationship was Clothesline. He's the enforcer for the club, and he comes up and he says, "Hey, Tex, you got a minute?" And I said, "Yeah." So we go into this one door I'd never been in the clubhouse, and it leads to a very tight, steep stairwell down to a very small basement. I know I'm 6'4", and with boots on, whatever I was, 6'5", whatever. But I'd never been in that door. So now I can't stand up straight. I could probably touch the wall on both sides. I don't know if I could, but I know in my mind I'm getting tunnel vision, and it feels like the walls are closing in on me because I realize it's not a good thing. Because
there's only one way out.
Yeah, there's no way out.
Yeah,
it's just back up the stairs. So I go down, following Clothesline, and as I'm doing that, another member follows me, and I'm like, okay, this isn't good. Yeah. And they show me their pistols, and the one stays on the steps. Watching, I see
do you have a pistol on you?
No. I see, which I mean, even if what we try to do is de-escalate. I mean, me personally, I was taught de-escalate. Same thing as when I was bouncing, de-escalate, diffuse, right? So even if I had a gun and I shot those two, well, I got to get upstairs, and now there's like what, 8-10 more outlaws.
And you're deaf. You're deaf. You shoot a gun in that fucking room, dude.
Yeah. The ringing. Yeah. So he pulls me down there and he says, "Look, man, this is his words. He goes, there's a lot of shit going on, and it's my job to take care of my brothers." He said, "I need you to write down your full name, your whatever, your date of birth, your social security number." He knew my phone number, but whatever, my address. And then he told me, "I need you to take all your clothes off because I'm going to check you for a wire." The problem was, as I already said, I was wired to the hilt. So now I'm going into panic mode. I'm going into adrenaline dump mode. And for the listeners that don't know what that is, if you've ever had a traumatic experience, you probably do. You just haven't had it broken down to you like this. You get auditory exclusion. So everything you hear sounds like you're underwater. It's slowing down and going whoosh, whoosh. All the voices are real slow. And then you get time dilation. So everything you see is going in clicks, like screen grabs. It's like click, click. And what feels like 30 minutes might only be a minute. Like I tell people, if you've ever been in a car wreck or your first car wreck, man, I remember doing 360s, and it was, to me, it was slow motion, and I'm moving the steering wheel all slow, but it happened so fast.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's going on. And the stress of the situation made me forget my middle name, even though I know it through and through. I've been this guy for many, many years. I know it because I created it, and it is me. But the stress made me forget my middle name. And through that, I'm panicking. I'm asking questions. I'm still trying to listen to what's going on, maybe gain some intelligence. And then I remember my middle name. I write it down, and then I take off all my clothes. I take off all my upper body clothing. I can't remember how many shirts I had on. It was cold, so I'm probably layered up. I take my boots off, and I drop my pants and underwear around my ankles. So from the ankles up, completely naked. And he checks me, but I'm still panicking, right? It's this roller coaster ride. I'm like, oh crap. And then I'm like, okay, oh crap. Okay. And I'm looking at Clothesline because we've known each other for pretty much a year and a half now. And as I said, our relationship's pretty tight. And if I didn't say it out loud, but if you saw what my eyes and my face were saying, I'm looking at him basically saying, tell me it's going to be okay. And his response back to me was kind of like, hey, this is just procedure. It's okay. But he didn't know I was an undercover FBI agent with recording devices on me.
Yeah, it's going to be okay unless he finds a fucking recording device in your pants or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That adds a little. Again, if I didn't have wires on me, it would have just been embarrassing, and I would have been naked in the basement with two grown men, But as I say a lot of times, I said I would have much rather heard that story and say, man, that sucks, than to be standing there naked going, man, this sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're done. I'm talking to him, and he's even saying, he's like, let me ask you something. If I came to your town and started doing all this stuff with you, wouldn't you be suspect? And I'm like, yeah. I said, but I didn't come to you, and nobody has to do anything. Nobody's forcing anybody to do anything. If nobody wants to do this shit, we ain't got to do it. And he's like, well, he says, hey, trust me, if somebody accused me of being a Fed, I'd probably smash them in the effing mouth. And I immediately respond, well, I'm not happy. And he said, I wouldn't be either. But I'm saying that to you and the listeners right now, and you're hearing my voice this way. If you hear the recording, my voice does not sound like this. My voice is way higher. My throat is tighter. I'm not even enunciating well, even though I don't do it anyway because I'm a damn country boy. But it was worse. And I think I'm done. And I pull my pants back up. And then he grabs a piece of clothing that I had on. And he says, hey, I'm not going to find anything in here I don't want to, like some naked pictures of my old lady. And he laughs. And my response laugh was not really a laugh. It was more of a,
Yeah.
And it just so happens that what he grabbed had a device in it. And he starts going over it and kneading it with his fingers. And this is around 2006-ish. Technology was different. But let's just say if he would have kept doing that all over, he probably would have felt something. He kind of looks right at it. And as he's doing it, again, I don't know I do this, but on the recording, you clearly hear an audible sigh out of me because I'm watching him go through this piece of clothing. And I am looking, and I can't leave. Or at least that's what they've portrayed to me. You're not free to leave. Here's a pistol. You're not free to run around and do anything. And you hear me go, as I'm watching. Don't even know I do it. And he misses it. And he hands me, now I'm putting my clothes back on, and I go right back into business mode. And I'm making jokes because it's a defense mechanism for me. I'm like, well, I'm glad I didn't wear white underwear, because I basically crap my pants.
Yeah.
And then we start talking business, and I go back up, and they missed it, and I lived to fight another day.
That is a terrifying story, man. And I've thought about that a lot too, where you know, I mean, I don't know how, I don't know all the kind of social factors that would play into a decision like this, but like, I've always wondered if, it's one thing if you catch an informant, someone who's also a criminal that they know has been talking to police or the feds or whatever. It's another thing if they know they caught a Fed. It's like, are you really going to whack out a fucking Fed right now? You guys want the death penalty? You know what I mean?
Depends.
It's like, yeah.
I mean, you got to look at who you're going up against. Let's say it's
Yeah.
an extremist ideology. Maybe
Mhm.
they wear the killing a Fed or a law enforcement officer as a badge of honor,
Totally.
and they walk into prison like, look at what I did,
Yeah.
So you never know. So people ask. That's a good way to lead into it. They ask, man, what would you have said if he would have found
Mhm.
something? And because he already said that joke about naked pictures of his old lady, my first response probably would have been, if he would have said, what is this? I probably would have said, I don't know, some naked pictures of your old lady, trying to buy some time, maybe laugh it off. But the only other thing I had to say, Jesse, is, and I remember it like it was yesterday, I would have said, the gig is up. I'm an undercover FBI agent, and I can walk out of here and we can see each other in court, or all hell's going to break loose. But as I say in the book, that would have been a bluff on my part, because as far as I knew, my cover team never really could hear me when I was in that clubhouse. But
Probably
what I found
especially
out,
when you're down in that basement.
right? I mean, think of
Yeah.
cell phones today. As great as they are, you can be in one building and not get a single bar.
Yeah.
So I at the end of the night, at the end of the shift or whatever, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, whatever it was, I go to hand my recording equipment over at an undisclosed location to the case team. And that's when I find out that the task force officers that started the shift, who had been working with me for a year and a half or more, they thought something was up. Something didn't seem right with them on that first interaction with Joe Dogs, made their spotty senses
When
go
he
off.
said that they weren't ready for you yet. That you
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. They were
Yeah.
like, something just seems weird. So they actually were able to hear everything. And I didn't know that. But what it's 2 task force officers, Sergeant Higginbottom and Detective Cummings, and they had went ahead and suited up, threw their vest, their kit on, and they had been in that clubhouse before. They knew how fortified that door was with metal bars and stuff like that and deadbolts. So their plan was to drive the vehicle. If it was a go, we got to go in there and get him. Me being him, they were going to drive the van into the cinder block wall next to the door to kind of hopefully breach what's around the door. And they didn't, because I think because they had gotten to know me, even though that clearly wasn't my baseline, they could hear my voice high. They had radioed back to the rest of the team in Boston. And from what they told me, everybody was hauling tail down to my location, blue lights and sirens. Because who knows? Were they going to be avenging my death? Were they going to be pulling me out after getting my tail kicked? I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if we asked the outlaws that were in there, if we asked them today, they might play light on it and be like, oh, it was just going to scare him. But who knows? Who knows in the moment, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a pretty wild night.
Yeah. And then you said that your wife had an experience that day too, right?
Yes. What I'd done at that point in my marriage and career, I bought, everybody's pretty familiar with a burner phone now. They call them burner phones. You can just go to Walmart, buy a track phone, set it up or whatever. As long as you pay your minutes, it doesn't come back to anything. So I did that out of my own pocket for my wife, so I could have a way to contact her from my undercover phone. In other words, you don't want undercover touching law enforcement or real family.
Sure.
That'd be bad operational security, OPSEC. So no matter what time it was during that case, I would call her when I was on my way home. Could be 7 in the morning. And then the phone was by the bed, and when I was out of town, and she would answer. Sometimes it's like, hey babe, just want you to know I'm good. I'm going home. Or I'm going to the hotel. When I get up, I'll call you. Sometimes we talk. A lot of times it was like, okay, thank you. I love you, honey. I love you too. Bye. That night when I called her, the first thing she said was, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, why? Because I'm still coming down, right? And she said, I don't know. She said, at such and such time tonight, I was driving with our daughters in the car in McAllen, Texas. And she said, I just got this overwhelming feeling. And I pulled over on the side of the road and started praying for you. Man, I mashed it up, Jesse. And the time that she felt that is when I was being stripped in the basement.
Yeah, when I heard you tell that story, I got goosebumps thinking about it. And I told my wife about it. I mean, I'm a firm believer in all of that stuff where there's just too many things that I've either witnessed in my own life or seen with other people that are just like, or stories that I've heard. There's some kind of connection there with the people, the people you're tightest with. I mean, I've heard so many 9/11 widows say that they knew the second that their husband died, like the millisecond that their husband died, they instantly knew, where it was like, man, that just blows my mind. But
it's pretty powerful stuff, man. And I mean, again, the thing, I'm in Boston. That's pretty much the top northeast of the United States. And she's at the very bottom of Texas on the Mexico border. But I'm with you. I've got things in my family where like my grandmother woke up from a dead sleep and said, my aunt's name. She's like, she yells her name and she goes, something's happened from a dead sleep. Then the phone rings. Yep. Bad car accident. Almost died. Crazy stuff like that.
Yeah. My dad's brother died of a gunshot wound to the head. And my dad that same night woke up with the most paralyzing, splitting headache he's ever had in his entire life. And then also another one, my wife's mom's sister was a twin died, and the sister was at a wedding and collapsed, like unresponsive for like 3 minutes, just for no reason at all. And it was like they matched up. It's the moment of twin. There's a lot of really crazy stuff with twins, man. A lot of really stuff with stuff like that. Yeah, it's wild, dude. But yeah, I mean,
that's more than your normal bonding, right?
Yeah, that's the invisible kind. That's I don't know. I don't even know. I don't have a lot of theories on it. I know that on the the other side of that too. Like so when my wife and I go to Vegas, we play a lot of blackjack, man. And I have witnessed this is how I explain to people. It's like your energy affects your surroundings. And like, I have scientifically tested this. And here's how. I have seen probably around 1,000 times a person who has taken multiple bad beats in a row and they get really mad and they push all the rest of their money in on a blackjack hand and they lose that hand 100% of the time. I've never once seen a person win that hand. You got what? Like, I mean, even if they're the worst blackjack player ever, they got a 45% chance of winning. What? 0 for 1,000. They never win that fucking hand. Never. It never happens. Every single time they could get dealt to 20, dealer gets 15. They're going to hit a 6 and 21. They lose every time, no matter what. And it's like most of the time the dealer deals himself blackjack for some reason. That's like whenever I see someone do that, I don't bet because I'm like, oh, this is no good, And usually it comes in the form of a beat that the dealer gives to him. And and my wife and I, we always just look at each other. We're like, this is infallible, this theory. So I don't know. It's just something we've observed.
When a bad day starts and you get the more pissed off you get, the more bad stuff happens. I'm like, all right, let's just take a breath, do some combat.
Go take a nap.
I'm gonna reset. I'm gonna slow down and reset. Let's start this day over.
So have you ever thought about reaching out to Scott or like, is he still locked up?
No, he's out.
He is? You ever thought about reaching out to him?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a 50-50 shot, right?
Yeah.
Somebody, I think my wife even said, she goes, what if he came up and he just punched you square in the face and said, now we're even? I said, I'm okay with that.
Dude,
I'm like, all right. I mean, okay, man, head or gut? I think I'm gonna take gut.
Yeah.
But yeah, whatever. Yeah. That's this.
I bet if you reached out to him that he'd take that call and I think it'd be good, dude. That would just be my hypothesis. I don't know the fucking guy, but like that would be my hypothesis. But it'd be like he's not going to reach out to you. You know what I mean? But I bet he thinks about you reaching out to him, maybe. Especially now he's going to see you on podcasts and shit. He's going to be like, "Fuck, man." Especially with you talking about him in the podcast, he'd probably be. I bet you he'd be stoked if you hit him up.
He's pretty famous in my circles.
Yeah.
I've been talking about him since like 2008 to thousands upon thousands of law enforcement officers. I've been teaching that.
Oh, he's like the key example of that. Like, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm just saying, when I teach that block and I'm talking about the outlaws and the crash and the mental health and all this stuff, it is very, very transparent. That's the only way I know how to be. And it's very, everybody knows that me and Scott were, it was just crazy how close we were.
It's
I mean, you meet people like that,
relationship.
right? I just had a guy swing by here. I signed a book for him. He's a good friend, but we haven't known each other that long.
Mhm.
We met on a set of a movie. He's the stunt coordinator, former cop, former fire chief, former Navy, does all kinds of rescue stuff in the mountains. And we met on the set and we kind of hit it off. And then somehow we ended up doing some filming thing with Red Bull Racing for something they were filming. And we spent days and days, but it was as if we had known each other our entire lives. And we are that tight now. I mean, like I almost died 2 Septembers ago. We hadn't seen each other in months. He came over, spent the entire day with me, helped me get my mind right. And it's just that connection. You run into people like that, especially as you get older, right? You don't have to do all the BS like we've grown up together. It's just like, man, that is the same. We are kindred spirits is the best way to say it.
Yeah, I got one of those. Well, I mean, I've been friends with him for a long time, but it was one of those things where like we went to the same college and he married someone that ended up being friends with my wife and like instantaneously. He's probably my favorite person on earth now. We just went to Vegas a couple weeks ago to go to the UFC. But yeah, man, it's a good thing, dude. Like it's good to have like if I meet a guy that doesn't have good guy friends, I'm like, there's something off with that dude. You know what I mean? It's like yeah,
you're right.
It's a good indicator of a dude's character. If they got good guy friends, that means they're probably solid. You know?
Yeah. There's always gonna be haters. You know, you can't help them. But
no, of course. If you don't have haters, then you don't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
I love it when a hater. Not that I want to give any haters any time on the air, but I love it when somebody doesn't even use their real name. They got some bogus Instagram thing and they just blast the shit out of it. And I'm like 99.9% sure I know who it is. And I'm like, I almost want to accept it and respond and say, do you feel better now? You know?
Yeah. I feed him a little bit.
You know?
Yeah, I feed him a little bit. There's a couple people that were just constant in my comments. And one of them, so when I started a second channel with my wife that we do, and they were on one of the live streams, and I was like, and this dude was in there talking shit. And I'm like, and I said to my wife, I'm like, this guy's fucking, he's always in the comments talking shit. And he commented, he's like, wait, you know who I am? He like this dude fucking has commented 3 times on every single thing I've ever done. And then when I said that to my wife on the live stream, he's like, wait, you know who I am? And she's like, he says, I'm like, are you fucking serious? You've commented 700. Yes, of course I know who you are.
Yeah.
And now he's like our biggest fan. He's like, because it's kind of like a joke.
Yeah.
He's always super nice to my wife and talks shit about me, which I think is fucking hilarious. Like I think it's like the funniest thing.
You can see him laughing, right? So it's funny you say that. Since the Rogan show, one of the outlaws who was in the basement with me started trolling the crap out of me on Instagram, and it was like, you know. Like you click on his moniker and it's like it's his road name, 1%er, and then it says F you, Scott Payne, you big bitch, you know, and then it's like he goes on and he's like he said all these other things, gay, you know, what are you gonna sign the book? I'm a loser. And then he said something like I'm a big, these are his words. He goes, I'm a big bitch with a little female part. And I thought that's not even really a put down, because number one, you said I'm big, and number two, if you're a female, I don't think you want a big part.
Yeah,
you know?
That's fair.
And then the last thing I saw, he said, he was like, I've seen you naked in the basement. There wasn't much there. And I really wanted to accept it. And because I could totally hear him, I could totally see his face and him laughing as he's doing it. Yeah. But I really wanted to respond and say, you're still thinking about me naked from 2007? I'm like, what are you?
That's 18 years ago, dude.
And I'm like, plus it was cold and I'm not attracted to you. And I thought I was going to die.
Yeah. Hey, let's see how big your dick is if I fucking put a gun in your mouth, guy.
That's a whole other level of shrinkage, man. I got all kinds of stuff going on. That's the last thing on my mind, you know?
That's funny.
You know, you can't, I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to bite, but you can't help but laugh a little bit.
Did he go inside? Like, did he get indicted in the whole thing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He went to jail too. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the longest prison sentence any of them got?
I think it was the guy at the end. I think he got over 20, but he had so many priors. I think by that time in his life, he'd already been in prison longer. He spent more of his more of his life in prison than he had out.
Yeah.
So he had a bunch of priors and whatnot. I wasn't there for all that because I'm just in undercover. I wasn't the case team. So
Yeah.
but yeah, I think he got 20 something.
If it was me, like if I got infiltrated by an agent, you know, like there's these stories I've heard that are real fucking weird. Like there's the guy who infiltrated the Hells Angels and wasn't even an agent. Like, you know, I can't remember the guy's name. He like did it on a dare. He's like from Alaska or whatever that guy's name. Like he's like, it's like really famous. Guy wrote a book. I can't remember his name. He does all the documentaries, but
it's not Hunter Thompson.
No. This guy was like, he was working with law enforcement, but wasn't even an agent or anything. He's like Tony Tate. Let me make sure that I'm saying the right thing. Hang on.
But he's probably a source. He was probably a confidential informant.
But he didn't have any. He wasn't. It's not like here. Tony Tate. Yeah. So like it's not like they didn't bust him for something. Like he did it on a dare. Like he was like, I bet you I could infiltrate the Hells Angels. He got his patch. He was on like. He's the guy that ended up getting Sonny Barger rung up for 8 years because he went to Sonny Barger and told him that he wanted to blow up the Outlaws clubhouse, and Sonny Barger agreed to it, and they rung up so the last prison sentence that Sonny did, I'm pretty sure, was because of that dude, and he wasn't even law enforcement. He was just doing it like, I mean, I'm sure he was getting paid, I guess, once he was in or whatever, but like it was like
I hope. Unless you're just, I mean, that's a hell of an adrenaline junkie. I'm like, dude,
yeah,
be careful.
But yeah, I mean, if it was that guy and I got sent to prison, I'd be like, fuck that guy on social media. But a federal agent, you know, like a federal agent, I would just be like, I got, dude. You know what I mean? I got infiltrated. You know, I wouldn't be mad at the agent personally, but so I heard, you know, when you were saying on the other show, you're saying if I was running my own club, I wouldn't get infiltrated. I don't want you to give anything away, but I will ask.
I said it jokingly.
Yeah,
I kind of got spoken over, but I was like, I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, but still, I mean, I would imagine. So it brings me to the question that I had, you know, in regards to that. Wouldn't it be a better way of checking someone out rather than taking them to a basement and stripping them down? You put them in a situation where it's like, here, federal agent, do this thing that you're not allowed to do. You know, if you're an agent, fucking do this. You're a career criminal, right? Do this fucking thing. You know what I mean?
Possibly. Yeah. I mean, we would be getting into tradecraft, right? Sure. And I don't want to put anything in criminals' minds, even if it's already been out there. I mean, the argument's always going to be some tradecraft stuff. There's going to be people that think you're giving it away, but just be assured that all this stuff number one, it's all adjudicated. It's in the court records. It's in the news articles. The FBI went through this book thoroughly before you can put it out and that kind of stuff. But I mean, I had when I was in the Outlaws, they told me, "Hey, have you ever read this book?" And I don't say which one it is, but they're like, "Have you ever read this book?" And I'm like, I might say it I might actually say it in my book. It's been so long. I've been doing so many of these, but either way. They said, "Have you read this book?" It was about an undercover who went into a biker gang, and I read it. And sometimes when I read books, it's like they sometimes they put like a litany of tests or things that undercovers can't do, and I'm like, I don't know why you want to put that in there, because there's people still out here trying to do it, and especially biker clubs. What are we, like 40 years now? They've been infiltrated. From everything from a local department all the way up to the feds. So that's my backstory is what it is. And I will paint myself in a certain way, you know. Me personally, as I got older in the job and longer in the tooth, if somebody wants to pull some stupid test, I'm probably just walking. I'm just gonna be like, all right, screw you. Because it's not worth anything, you know.
Yeah.
But I did say in the book, in a couple of situations, generally in the criminal world, the favorite color is green. It's and greed wins the day almost all the time. Like you said, if you throw that down anger on the blackjack, you've never seen anybody win. I've seen greed win pretty much every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, as I think about it too, the way that you presented yourself to the group, it's more, Like, it's not like you went out with the intention of like prospecting. You know, it's like if someone comes in and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to prospect," and it's like, "Here, come on this armed carjacking with me, prospect." But if you're like, "No, I'm already an established criminal. You want to do business with me? I'm not doing any fucking tests with you. We don't need to do this, dude." Like,
Yeah,
you know
and
what I mean?
it's a case by case basis, but that's one of the reasons. Look, ego wise, I would have loved to have patched. That's actually not being biased. They're still my favorite colors. Like if I look at biker clubs, I'm like, hey, I love the Outlaws colors, you know.
Mhm.
But the thing is at that case, and even if you talk to the task force officers or you listen to them when they're being interviewed, that was a concern. If I did probate or prospect, like you said, what if they said, "Tex, grab your shit, we're going to go jack this guy"? That's
Mhm.
something you got to figure out. Those are all kinds of contingencies. Again, I've said it in other interviews, but I took this from a really good buddy of mine. But undercover is a lot like chess. You're trying to think 4 moves ahead. You're trying to be prepared for anything that's coming at you, because or you might end up in the basement naked, sitting there going, "Dang, you know, how did that happen?"
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild, man. Well, I guess we could close the book on the Outlaws for this interview, except I would just say I would be very curious how it would go with Scott. I think it would go well, me personally, if you reached out to him. I think you guys would be friends. That's my hypothesis, dude. Knowing human beings, you know. But
I concur.
don't yeah. So on the cartel thing, so like what I wanted, that was the only thing I really wanted to dig into really was like on the cartel front. I always wonder what it's like to interact with some of these guys. Are they, you know, can they, because like they do such barbaric shit down there that it makes you wonder if they can present themselves as normal, like people that you can interact with and do business with and feel comfortable as long as you're not like one of their enemies. Because it's like that's even more scary. It's like if it's some like, you know, terrifying schizophrenic fucking lunatic that's like, go hang them from a bridge, then at least you kind of know what they are. But if they can kind of walk into a room and act completely normal and then, you know, give the green light to go cut someone's limbs off and hang them from the fucking ceiling, that's way scarier to me.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, well, you're talking cartel, but look at all the mafia stuff. My mentors, Joe Pistone, Jack Garcia, my buddies and peers and people that I've been blessed to be a mentor for. Same thing. They're in there like, "Hey, buddy, how's it going?" Pow, you know, and chopping you up and separating body parts. But you are correct. When I was down there, I was on the border for 6.5 years, and it became clear pretty quick that they did not value life like we do. And there is some horrific stuff that goes on. I mean, cooking people in 55-gallon drums, either in diesel or acid, and they call it el guiso, which is soup. They're turning you into soup, chopping your fingers off while you're alive, just torture, battery jumper cables on your body parts and hitting you and beating you, burning cigars on you, stuff like that. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually sat when I first started getting some traction long time ago, man. This must have been actually I know so it was definitely 2020. And I went out to Arizona and I sat down with Sammy Gravano and I hung up. I did an interview with him and then we came back out. Then we were back out there, myself and my family. We actually hung out with his son and his family, and he was there. And it's like he's like a charming guy. He's funny, but if you're good at kind of like sizing somebody up, it's like that dude would put a hollow point behind your ear and never think about you ever again, and you could just feel it. You could just feel it interacting with him. It's like it's different, you know. It's different.
Well, so some of the people I would interview in a law enforcement capacity, right? It might be an MS-13 member, and maybe they're not active in there anymore. But they start telling me stories of when they were in Honduras or El Salvador. And as a kid, they're seeing people brutally murdered in the street and left. So every day when you walk to the store or to school, you pass this rotting body. If anybody knows anything about child psychology, your brain is not set up to make those kind of decisions or to process that kind of stuff that early. You know, it's just bad. And then now you're looking at somebody who's giving you that 1,000-yard stare, because they've seen so much and they're so desensitized and it's changed their mental capacity and structure. they're staring right through you. Like they don't even feel anything.
Yeah.
And that's that. You're right. That's scary. I've seen that 1,000-yard stare in a lot of people I've dealt with, and it's like, oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could just, it's like and now I'm not necessarily talking about Sammy specifically, but like, but that blank stare with someone like that, like a real killer who's, it's like, it's very identifiable. And it's at least to people, if you're good at kind of reading people's faces, it's 1,000-yard stare is a perfect way to say it. It's just like complete dead eyes where
one of the last interviews I remember doing in McAllen before I transferred out of there, it was a 13-year-old kid. They were calling them like Zetitas. So it's like Zetas, but they're in training. Yeah. Like the little Zetas. But this was a 13-year-old kid who had multiple kills already under his belt. And when you sit there and talk to him, it was that 1,000-yard stare. And you're going
already.
Yeah. Just, like this dude's staring right through me. He's not even hearing anything I'm saying.
It's wild.
He's seen so much gruesome stuff already and done it.
Yeah. I remember.
I'm not saying everybody's bad. I know we get into the current political thing. We're like, every person that come across the border is bad. No, I said, but by golly, the bad ones are hopping in there too.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? So with the current border situation, it's like, man, it's like this type of issue is so complicated, man. It's like so I have a very natural disposition of like, protect kids, protect women. So as soon as you introduce something into an equation where children or women are being victimized, my brain snaps into like kind of draconian response mode.
Yeah.
And then something, and then like, I don't know, maybe not mine, but maybe other people's like cleaning ladies will come through and they don't speak English. And you're like, do I want fucking ICE to come just uproot these people's lives and just throw them back? No, of course not. I don't want that. Like they're like, making a life out here. I don't have no idea what their immigration status is, but I like to say hypothetically, if it was bad. So it's like, I don't know, man, it's just a very complicated issue.
It is very tough. I'm a little bit more disconnected from it because the FBI works everything, but I can tell you when I was working all that special interest alien smuggling, it was very rare, if at all, you ever found like a direct pipeline of like Chinese triad moving China illegals into the United States all the way to New York City. It still had to come through the cartel. You still got to pay to get across. So we might be working a case and see like 8 different loads come in of undocumented aliens. None of them are from threat countries. And then that 9th load has like 9 Chinese and 2 people from Yemen or something like that. But you spend a lot of that time there. And again, Border Patrol and ICE, that's what they do. And if you look at it from a humanitarian standpoint, man, it's sad. A lot of times it's sad. But what I used to always say before, the previous regime is, look, we're law enforcement officers. Don't hate on us for enforcing the law. If you don't like the law, change the law.
Change the fucking law.
Yeah, but then it became like, we're just going to pick and choose which laws we want to enforce and which ones we don't. And we're going to decide it case by case, person by person. And it's like, well, that's kind of effed up.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I mean, I've been on I've spent days in the Falfurrias checkpoint and the Hebronville checkpoint and the Cerritos checkpoint and the McAllen station, the Rio Grande City station, you name it. Days and days working with Border Patrol and stuff. And you might see if they were from Mexico, they would just take them and put them right back across the river. And I would get a call from my informants or whatever saying, hey, they're already back at the house. Like they've already crossed the river. They're back at the same stash house and just grabbed them. And I'm like, well, let's go get them again. But it's just, you can't even finish the paperwork before it's done. Yeah. This is when I was there for those 6.5 years. But then they apprehend a mother and daughter that maybe came from Chile and they took ships over here and there's no telling. I mean, I got an idea because we were doing interviews, but they went through horrific things that men did to them on these ships to get to the United States. They get here and they get apprehended. And because they're not from Mexico and they're from other than Mexico, and they put them on a plane and fly them right back. And I'm like, dang, but that, that's the humanitarian side. You're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. But you're like, how about we use them to fucking go on those ships and just decapitate all the dudes that were, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's
Man.
tough. We've done cases too where I was the case agent on one. It was the case started with a 16-year-old mentally, physically challenged female, undocumented Honduran, and they found her in the brush. They left her for dead. Border Patrol found her. They put her with child protective custody. They were able to figure out that she was part of a family that was in Virginia, undocumented, illegal, but they're in, and they had paid, they had been there working, they sent their money over to get the rest of the family. So this mentally, physically challenged female was coming across with her sister and a niece.
Mm-hmm.
So then we find out, we get in touch with the family in Virginia, and they're like, look, the alien smuggling organization is extorting us. They're telling us that the 5-year-old girl is sick. They're not going to give her any help. And if they don't pay more money, they're going to let her die too. Because they didn't know that we had recovered the 16-year-old. So you get across the river in the Rio Grande Valley. You get across the river, you pay that money, but they get you across the river, and they're usually holding you at a staging location, a stash house, until somebody else walks you through the brush to get around the checkpoint. And we were on a ticking clock because we're trying to figure out where these other two females are at and recover this 5-year-old girl. And we ended up doing it. It took like probably 2 or 3 days nonstop working. We were able to figure out where the person was at, followed them to a house, hit that house, didn't find any of the undocumented aliens, but found the ledgers that they were keeping and the phones that were being used. You know what I'm saying? Like, you cut on the phone, you say, hey, there's a bunch of phones that were hidden, cut them on. And then you dial the number that's been calling our family in Virginia, and the phone rings, and you're like, all right, you're our guy. And we were able to recover everybody. And we did not go into illegal deportation proceedings for that. They actually ended up testifying. We went to trial, and that family testified, but we were able to put everybody together, the 5-year-old girl and everything, back with
That's like, that's got to be one of those things that's, I would imagine, not very common, but feels really good when it works out like that.
Man, there wasn't a dry, every guy out there wasn't a dry eye when we put that girl on the phone with her mother. We said, hey, we gave her a phone after we took everything down. Everything was secured. Everybody was being processed and safe. We put the 5-year-old girl on the phone with her mother, and man, we were all like, you know,
Yeah,
man, it's
sure.
the wind's blowing. I got my allergies.
Yeah.
In my eye, you know?
I gotta go take a break. Yeah.
I'm not crying.
Yeah. That's awesome though. But like, so how, so like one of the things, you know, I've read a fair amount about like the, you know, at least alleged connection between the, you know, CIA and cartels in Mexico. And I've always, anytime I had this conversation with just random people who are talking about it, I'm like, it almost seems like you have to establish, like, oh, let me put it like this. If it were me and I was in charge of it, like high level CIA level kind of protection of the country, if you have these warring factions of cartels right across the border, you know, 5 feet, you know, away from the country, to me, unless you can get everybody to stop wanting to do meth, blow, and every other thing, like the best way to protect the population is to help a single organization have control of all of the routes, and you make it a, you know, kind of a condition of your support that they never allow a fucking dirty bomb over there, no terrorists, no whatever, and, you know, will help you and kind of leave you alone. So that's always kind of made sense to me. That's why I've never really looked at it like, okay, that's like a super evil thing if they have some kind of relationship there, because it seems like if you don't do that, then you have a bunch of wild, you know, it just seems like it would make it much more likely that something really serious could come over the border that could be like mass casualty. But I guess so, and that just leads into my question, like with your experience at the border, how well founded are people's concerns that something like that could happen, like straight up terrorists that are going to try mass casualty events could get in currently, or like historically?
Well, I mean, they're tightening up considerably now.
Yeah.
Which I mean, is it going to stop everything? No, but is it going to bring it into a funnel and into a, you know, we're bottlenecking and they got smaller places to cross through.
Thank God.
The CIA angle, I don't know. Oh, you know what? Since you said thank God, I'll parlay off of that and say this. when all that was going on, like the COVID, whatever, and nobody was working, let me explain something to you. I mentioned the Hebronville checkpoint. One night I get a call because it was an organization we were trying to get some charges on, and the Border Patrol, they apprehended a load of undocumented aliens, and they call and they go, "Hey, this is matching up. It looks like it's coming from the organization you want to work that you ask us about." So I grabbed my buddy who lived 1 block behind me. He was Border Patrol at the time. We jump in the car and we drive in the middle of the night to Hebronville from McAllen. Well, we get to the Hebronville station. We both kind of look at each other and we're like, we never went through a checkpoint to get here. And we go in and we're like, "Hey, what happened to the checkpoint?" And they're like, "Oh, well, they're understaffed right now. And that they just closed that one for the night." Jesse, do you know how fast that information gets to the cartel? It's like ants. It's like ants at a picnic, man. It's like, "Hey, the food's over here." It's like, "Hey, just pick a highway. Let's just say it's Highway 10 or whatever." They're like, "Hey, there's no checkpoint at Highway 10. Everybody this way right now." So can you imagine what it was like when nobody was even working the checkpoints, or when they said, "We're going to work first and second shift," or they were told? They didn't say it. We were told you're only going to work first and second shift. Do you not think that everybody's sitting in the brush watching going, "All right, the lights are shutting off, the reverse lights are on, and okay, let's go." You know, it's crazy. So to say that we know everything that's in the States, no. And nefarious, as many as there are good people trying to get over here, I hate it. Again, on the humanitarian side, I can't stand it. But the law is the law, and there are legal ways to do it. Maybe that can be streamlined a little bit. I don't know. As far as CIA and stuff like that goes on the cartel side, I only know what I've seen in movies.
Me too. And read in books.
I watch Sicario just like everybody else. But I will say this, as the FBI, we do have working relationships. As a tactical instructor down there, we would run joint like SWAT training or whatever. It was a way to liaison. And do I know that I'm staring at a commandante or a cop who's probably taking money, because everything kind of runs like that in Mexico? At least when I was down there, yeah, probably. But when that kidnapping does happen, or that extortion, we can call and say, "Hey, we have a border liaison officer." They're always doing those liaisons with the legats or the embassies, and then local law enforcement on the Mexico side and federal. And they can make that call and go, "Okay, it's such and such time. It's at the corner of this street. 3 Suburbans pulled up. A bunch of guys jumped out with black BDUs on. They grabbed the guy's name is this. They took him, and now we're trying to find him." Or they're calling the family and asking for money. It might be 30 minutes to an hour, but we get a call back saying, "Yes, they got him. Here's the deal. Coming from the Mexican side, they're saying he lost $100,000." And then we start working it from there.
Yeah.
So you got to have.
You want to know what the best TV show I've ever seen about this topic is this one right here. I'm going to show it to you on the screen. Did you ever watch 000 on Amazon?
No.
It's crazy. No one knows about that show, and it is phenomenal. It's like they only did 1 season, and it's like you have all of these different stories that are happening all at once. You have an Italian mafia family in Italy that makes this, some huge cocaine shipment, and then you have the people who are responsible for transporting this enormous shipment, and then you have the Mexico side, and it's like a fictional version of the Zeta story, where you have like the special forces guys who then go off on their own. It is phenomenal. Like, that show is so good. I was so disappointed that and I mean, people who know good shows. Yeah. Zero. Let me double check that, because it is, I mean, like, you could come back and tell me to go, like, be like, you don't know shit about TV if you don't love that show. Yeah, let me double check here. It's 2021 season. It's wild they didn't do another one. Yeah, it's 8 episodes, and it is exceptional. Yeah, on Amazon. Excellent. You'll love it, dude. Let me know how it goes. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna let you go, dude. I'm gonna let you go because I have to go pick up my kid. But awesome. Thank you, dude. I really appreciate it. And yeah, man. I'll tell everybody about the book. Tell everybody about the book.
I'm sorry. Codename Pale Horse. The subtitle is "How I Went Undercover to Expose America's Nazis." But it's not just about Nazis and neo-Nazis and white supremacy. It covers like you said earlier, murder for hires, the biker case, public corruption cases, dives deep into my faith, dives deep into, and again, I'm transparent. It's there's been tough times with my family, and we're still holding out. We're doing good.
Nice.
But yeah, that's the book, and maybe we'll see each other at the UFC fight. I'm my friends are Scotty Nelson and Ed Clay. They own CPI stem cells, so.
Oh, dude, I know a lot of guys that are going there.
Yeah. That's how I met Tim Sylvia, by the way, through a mutual friend that went. But I went down there the week. I've had 6 shoulder surgeries, a bicep rupture repair surgery. I've got partial tears. I've had 2 lumbar fusions, and the total hip replacement 2 Septembers ago almost killed me. I got sepsis. But so I got still stuff happening, as I joke, but not joke. I'm like, I've figured out in the last several years, my genetics aren't as good as I thought they were. So I'm still falling apart. But instead of opting for surgery, I went the week before Thanksgiving last November, and best hospital stay I've ever had. Phenomenal facility. Great things. I know people hear Tijuana and they're like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, dude, this isn't anything sus. This is legit. This was the
it's on the water, right? It's on the water, right?
Well, they have an office there, but you can still see the water. They've built a big facility that's the hospital and everything. And like I said, unbelievable. Food's great. They take care of you. They take you everywhere you need to go. And I'm going back, I think, at the end of April to do the follow-up, because they're doing the studies and clocking it in. So I'm curious to see. I know I'm feeling a lot better, but I'm curious to see what the MRI show on my shoulders and my neck. It was way worse than I thought it was. And I plan on getting my back and knees done. So
tell me how that goes.
Oh, great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 10 years younger than you, but I do my best to damage my body to jiu-jitsu every day.
It's a slow grow, because you're literally growing new soft tissue. So they like to use the analogy. Scotty says, hey, it's just like having a brand new baby. You're like, hey man, can I go drinking? And it's like, would you let your 2-month-old baby drink? So, but it's a slow growth. Some people feel something right away. But generally at the 6-month mark, you're feeling really good. And you're doing everything again. But at the 1-year mark, they're seeing the disc is completely full again. And that's not all they're doing. I mean, I did the hyperbaric oxygen chamber twice. I did NAD drips 4 or 5 days. Those are all peptides. That's like the youth serum right there. Did the Myers cocktail, the ozone into your blood. It's phenomenal.
That NAD, that stuff. Okay. The first time that I did an NAD drip, okay, like there's some people who say that they kind of like feel it immediately. I don't like feel it as if I took a pill or something. Where I notice it is I do an NAD drip, and for the next 3 to 5 days, I will go to jiu-jitsu and we'll go through like a 6-step sequence. And on the very first time through, I'm like, I got it. Like something I've never done before, like something like a sequence I've never been taught before. And it's like, okay, under the ankle, hook the back behind the calf, grab behind the lat, roll over your left shoulder, end up on knee on belly with the arm. And it's like, okay, I got it. First time someone tells, it's like, what the fuck? And it's like, I'm trying to learn all the time. And so I notice it every time I do an NAD drip. It's like, I just can all of a sudden retain this information so fast, where I'm 100% convinced it's the NAD, because it happens every time I do one.
I like Thursday night. That was the day after the procedure. If you get a disc injected, they want you to stay in the hospital overnight in a hospital bed, So I did that Wednesday. So Thursday, the crew all meets up to go out to eat. And Thursday I did the IV. I just did 120 million stem cells in an IV. But we meet and I'm all like perky. I hadn't been sleeping that much. And they were like, man, you sure are perky for everything that happened. I said, how are you not? I got so much stuff shoved in me right now, man. I'm like ready to go. Let's go. Yeah. It's good stuff, man.
Yeah. Well, awesome, man. I appreciate it. I'll tell you what, I'll DM you my cell phone, and we can stay in contact any way you want.
All right, brother.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, brother. See you later.
Peace.